So let's incorporate the hooks concept, whatever we learned in our automation code. Let's create a class called hooks. I created hooks.java in the step definitions, in the step definition package. You can say setup. Tear down. These are the two methods, setup and tear down. And for setup, I given the hook before. So make sure when you say it before, there are multiple things that came up. Make sure you use cucumber.api.java. Okay, you must import from cucumber.api.java.before. Okay, and for the tear down, I'm giving the hook after cucumber.api.java. You need to import that one. Save it. And in the setup, I want to initialize the driver and open the browser and launch the URL. Okay, so where I'm doing opening the browser and launching the URL, such initialization code I already created in the driver factory, the initialize driver. Okay, so here I'm opening the browser, maximizing it, putting the implicit weight, and I'm also loading the website that I wanted to launch. Okay, so let's call this initialize driver in our hook, in the before hook. Okay, initialize driver. What I recommend is you extend driver factory. When you extend the driver factory, the hooks inheriting all the methods and variables of driver factory. That way you get all the methods and variables of whatever is available in the driver factory to your hooks class. In the driver factory, there is one variable driver and there is one method initialize driver. So these two, this one variable and this another method, these two is inherited to the hooks class. And you can able to invoke the initialize driver. Now this is about initializing the driver. In the after scenario, in the after hook, you need to close the browser. If you want to close the browser, you need to say driver.close. If you wonder where did I got the driver variable in the hooks class, I'm telling you the driver variable is inherited from the driver factory. You can able to access all the methods and variables which are inherited from the parent class in the child class. That is not sufficient. You also have to say driver equal to null. Okay, so you are closing the browser and you are also nullifying the driver object. You are also making the driver object to null. And whenever a scenario is executed, remember, whenever a scenario is executed, the setup method is called, right? And in the setup method, we are initializing the driver. And let's look at one of our scenario. So this scenario has this particular feature, login.feature has 3 scenarios and a background also available. And what we are doing in this background, user opens the browser and load the URL. Let's go to this definition. Okay, let's go to the step definition directly. This is the step, user opens the browser and load the URL. And here we are initializing the driver. This statement is no need to be invoked again. This statement no need to be invoked in this particular step. Again, in the update profile feature, user opens the browser and load the URL. Again, that is this one. And we have login to application. Where are we using this? Login to application. Okay. This is also not needed any initialize driver. So the reason which I'm deleting the initialize driver from the step definitions is in the hooks we are already calling that. Remember, whenever a scenario is executed, before the scenario, before you execute the scenario, the before hook is executed. The method which is mentioned the before hook is executed. There we already initializing the driver. Before you execute the scenario itself. This scenario, you might wonder, this scenario is depending on the background, right? So together, before the scenario, before the background itself, the hook is executed. And in the hook, in the before hook, you are initializing the driver, and then your background is executed, and then your scenario is executed. Okay. I'm going to clarify once again. Now you have a hook, which I mentioned. You have before hook. So I mentioned that before every scenario, it is executed. Now you also have background. I also said background is executed before every scenario. Okay. Then which one will be executed before the scenario? Is the before the hook or background? If you look at the order is like this. Before you execute the scenario, before hook is executed, and then background is executed, and then scenario, and then after hook. Okay. For example, scenario 1. And for second scenario, same approach. Okay. Before you execute the scenario 2, before you execute the scenario, before hook is executed, and then background, and then background. After the scenario, you have after hook. Okay. So this is how the scenarios will be executed. If you look at our code, in the before hook, I mentioned initialize driver. The initialize driver, you know, which will take care of initializing the browser, loading the URL. And in the background, probably in the background you mentioned that home page should be appear. You click on the login link, and login page should be appear. So certain code is invoked. And in the scenario, you write your actual test code, and in the after hook, you close the browser. So that is how it is being executed. Okay. Now let's run the code and make sure all the scenarios are working fine and no issues at all. I'm going to run test runner, and we have at future level we have at all tag. Okay, so let's keep the tag as at all. so that all the scenarios will be executed. Let's run the code. The tag all is mentioned at future level for login.future, also at future level for update profile.future. So by giving the tag all, it executes all the scenarios. I also mentioned that if a tag is applied at future level, all the scenarios, the tag is applicable to all the scenarios in that future. Okay, it's throwing null point exception. I know the problem, I'll tell you. So if you look at the login step definition, extending the driver factory. Similarly, the profile step definition is also extending the driver factory. And if you see hooks also extending the driver factory. So whenever Cucumber creates an object for hooks, right? Whenever Cucumber creates an object for hooks, it also creates an object for driver factory because driver factory is the parent of hook. Okay. So similarly, whenever the Cucumber creates an object for the login step definition, it also creates an object for the driver factory. Okay. So that means so we have a hook object, we have a step definition object. That could be login step definition or that could be profile step definition. So when I create an object for hook, when Cucumber create an object for hook, it also create an object for driver factory. Okay. In the driver factory, we have a driver variable. Okay. And similarly, whenever Cucumber creates an object for the login step definition, it also create an object for the driver factory because before you create an object for the child class, you must have to create an object for the parent class. Automatically it happens. That's a Java concept. It also creates an object for the driver factory and that has a driver variable. And whatever you are initializing at hook, you are initializing the driver. Okay, that is allocating a driver object. So this driver object and this driver object both are different. Both are different. So that is why whatever the driver object that is initialized in the hook is not able to access by the login step definition because those two are two different variables. Okay, so what we need to do is, if you are unable to understand all these concepts, you must be good at Java. Then it will be easy for you to understand. So in case if you are not, you are at a beginner level of Java and you are not able to understand this particular thing, do not worry about that. So just remember that make the driver, make the driver object as static. Make the driver object as static and make a simple condition. If the driver is null, if the driver is null, okay, then only you initialize the driver. If the driver is not initialized, then only you initialize the driver. Okay, make a simple if condition. By making the static, by making the driver object as static is nothing but the driver object is shared by all the classes. That could be hook or that could be login step definition or that could be profile step definition. So there is a common driver object for all these classes, that is hook, login step definition, profile step definition, or etc., whatever it is. You have only one variable that is initialized at hook. You have only one driver object that is initialized at hook and that you access in the login step definition, in the profile step definition, etc. Okay, the only simple fix I made it is I made the driver object as static so that this object is accessible across all the all the classes, and this is shared by all the classes. Okay, let's run it once again and make sure it is working fine. Yeah, it is working. Let's wait for the execution to be complete. It is failed at hook start Java 21. Okay, I understand. I understand. What we are doing here, we are in the tier down, that is in the after hook, we are closing the driver. We are closing the driver, right? That is nothing but we are closing the browser. So if you look at in the future file, so in the scenario, at the end of the scenario, we are closing the browser. In the scenario itself, we are closing the browser. And after the scenario, in the after hook, we are again trying to close the browser. That is causing the failure. That is why it says no such session. Okay, the fix is just remove this line, then close browser. Anyway, closing browser is taken care at the after hook. Similarly, at profile, update profile feature, here there is no closing browser. After hook will take it care. Okay, let's rerun the code and make sure it is working fine this time. The problem is in the scenario itself, we are closing the browser, and after the scenario, in the after hook, again we are trying to close the browser. That is why it is causing the problem. So I removed in the scenario, I removed the close browser statement. The test were executing. Let's wait for some time to complete the execution. Now you can see that all the tests were executed. So that is how we use the hooks.